What's up, Pirates? Ray Talks here with Awaken TCG, and today I'm here with,
Jimper.
and today we have a nice video for you guys. Side note, daily uploads. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a single video. Today we have a tier list video for you guys. You guys can see here. We're going to be going through every single leader up to date and, making a tier list of what we think is good and what we think is bad.
Yeah, with all the recent events and recent tournaments coming out lately, there's been a lot of results to go off of. So we
Yeah,
figure,
definitely a lot of numbers.
yeah, since Gencon and stuff like that. So we feel that we were pretty confident in these placings. But if you guys disagree with anything, just throw us a comment and we can debate it in there. Anyways,
Yeah, well, yeah.
let's
Yeah.
get right into it. So for the Nope tier, these are just the leaders that just aren't good, aren't competitive. Like, you're going to win a random match here and there, but these are just not cards that are ever going to win a tournament any time in their lifetime. So that's going to be cards like Shanks. Do you have anything to say about Shanks? Nothing much to say there.
Yeah, nope. Sanji's bad. What
Sanji's
else?
real bad, never topped the tournament. Garp,
Herb.
I
He,
think
he
Garp, he's like the upper echelon of Nope.
Yeah, but still trash. I mean, he just doesn't have enough support for, for
Yeah.
what his game plan kind of is, really.
Just the red and black combo are trying to do two different things with cost and power. It just doesn't end up working out.
Yeah.
Sakazuki, another terrible card that's never, I think, even topped. I don't think I've ever seen a Sakazuki top. Just
I don't think I've ever played it in my
yeah,
career.
you probably don't know what it does. Yeah, its
Oh, no,
abilities
I
too
know. I really
expensive.
don't. I do not know what that card does at all.
Exactly, exactly. Its ability is just too expensive at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to.
Okay.
Also, Kaido, I think he's also towards the upper echelon of Nope, but purple as a color is just not good, and Kaido is sitting at the
Not
bottom.
yet. Not yet. Not
Not
yet.
yet. Come OP05,
And definitely in our fast-paced meta, Kaido just obviously does extra worse because, like, it's
exactly,
just, yeah.
exactly. And then King is just like literally worse Kaido. It has the worst ability that doesn't even make sense for purple. We don't need to talk about that. Blurple Kaido, I'd say, is like upper Nope, but still, I don't think this card is ever topped.
Yeah, nah. Troll.
Troll card.
Iceberg troll. Iceberg troll.
Iceberg.
Good concept, but
Yeah,
not.
cool concept, but his leader ability is very strong, but not being able to attack with leader is way too big of a downside.
Yeah, his effect needed, like, maybe if like you were able to like just tap one instead of Dawn -1, maybe he would have been better. But yeah,
Yeah, so Uta also probably better than these guys just because she's red, but
red. Yeah,
never topped the tournament. Its ability is just like terrible. It's like worse Luffy, worse Zoro, worse everything, which is why it's down there, and there's just no reason to play it over any other red deck. What else do we have in the trash tier?
I think that's it.
I think. Oh, one more. Here we go. Blurple Croc.
Oh yeah, and then the Luffy, the red green Luffy. That's just troll.
And red green Luffy as well.
There we
No
go.
reason to play this over like Law. Its ability
Yeah,
is just again, it's like the Sakazuki problem. It's too expensive. Tapping 4 Dawn is like your whole turn.
yeah. Just play law at that point.
Yeah. All right. So these are the decks that aren't good and you probably shouldn't play. Next tier, we're going to go to the trolling tier. These decks, I believe, can win games and they can actually take matches off the best decks, but very, very inconsistently because of one reason or another.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
yeah. So first, at the bottom of trolling, we're going to go with Ivankov.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those. I would say it's like a worse Dofi. Like, just play Dofi at that point, right? So it's like it makes you go down to 0 cards for her effect. But the thing is, it's like once you're at 0 cards, you don't know what the two you're gonna draw are. Like, they might be bricks. You might not even have a need for them, and then you just put yourself in a worse spot.
Exactly. The only reason I think we really put it here is just because it actually has good matchup against like Zoro,
Yeah, the only one good matchup
which is
against
one of
it.
the best decks in the meta. Not much to say there. Next, we've got Z. Definitely on paper an amazing color combo. Black and purple just like make sense together. And its leader ability actually complements it pretty well. But the 4 life, I think, is just a huge detriment in this fast-paced meta.
Yeah.
With 2 slow colors, it doesn't work out for Z.
Yep. Yep. Does not work out.
Next, we're gonna do Arlong. Arlong
Ooh,
is interesting.
great effect. Great
Yeah,
effect.
great effect, but with a great effect comes the fact that you run out of cards out of hand way too fast.
And then same problem as Z, you're dual color, so you're at 4 life. And
Yep.
again, this meta right now is so fast with Zoros, Luffy's laws, even Whitebeards.
Yeah,
They just run over you because you can't compete with their searchers.
exactly. It's you can play cards real quick, but you're not gaining card advantage with the cards you're playing, and there's going to come a point where you just run out of cards in hand and your board is gone and you have nothing to use.
Hmm.
Next up, we've got Black, Yellow, Big Mom.
Yeah. Uh,
Interesting deck for sure. Colors don't really work together. Leader ability is like very expensive, but at the end of the day, this leader can play 10 Cause Big Mom. So
yeah, right. Yeah, definitely troll. Like you said at the start, you could probably take some games, get super high rolls, get a lot of triggers, but at
for
the end of the
sure.
day, it's just the effect is too expensive, and then it's a 4 life leader again, and it just doesn't have enough upside to warrant those 4 life.
Exactly. At the start of the meta, it was looking interesting, but as it's paved out, definitely going to be towards the lower echelon here.
Definitely in that trolling tier.
Next, we're going to have the two green Wano leaders in Kinemon and Odin.
Yeah, I think both of these decks, I mean, they could go in either solid or trolling. I mean, I would say they're interchangeable. They're definitely uh they got some strengths, but in this meta, like it doesn't work out because Zoro just runs over you, Whitebeard runs over you. I mean, you have the ACOS kid, which is like a saving grace, but the green just doesn't have any new cards. You're basically playing OP02 in OP03 because Wano got zero support, and so you're basically playing an outdated deck in the current meta, and I would just keep them in trolling for now.
Agree. Not too many tops. Like they are there, but you're the green expert, so I think you said that well. Next, we're gonna go to the solid tier. These decks are you'll see them pretty semi-frequently in topping placements.
Yeah.
First, we'll have Crocodile, Blue Crocodile from the starter deck. I don't know too much about this deck. People were saying before this meta started that this was supposed to be the best blue deck with the introduction of cards like 3000 Worlds, but it has not been showing up. Either that's due to the lackluster leader or just not a lot of people wanting to play it.
Yeah, I think the main difference is compared to the other blue decks that are a lot better is just for instance, Dofi can leader ability and gain tempo because that's a +1 to your overall resource pool. With Croc, you don't have that. If anything, when you lose Dawn and you bottom deck something with his leader effect, you can get momentum for the time being. But once you minus that Dawn, if you don't do it at a crucial point to just kill your opponent, then it's never worth doing because you'll just set yourself back. And so I just feel like Croc has the blue strengths, but just again, you run out of resources because there's no way to generate cards.
Exactly, which is going to be a theme among the strong decks, is they can generate cards very frequently. Next here, we'll have Portgas
I
D Ace. Definitely punched in the gut by the restrictions.
Yeah, it got hit pretty hard. I would say probably the worst out of all the red decks.
Yeah, not what you like to see. It was a very cool deck, but I think it's fallen, but not too far. It's still in the middle here. I think it only fell down by a tier. I think it was in good before. Just down by one tier. It's still playable, but I think after the restrictions, nobody wants to play it because its best cards have kind of got taken away. But it's in a decent spot.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the future it can get some cards to support it. Anyway, next up we'll have a very interesting leader, which is going to be Kuro. I
Bro.
Kuro very interesting. Random people are topping with this deck, and not a lot of people are playing it. So I think the people that really invest the time in this deck know what they're doing, and they know that they can actually compete with these top decks. Like I'm pretty sure Kuro has a very good matchup against Zoro and Law as well.
Um,
I think it like actually eats Law for lunch with cards like
Shan,
Gin.
Butchie,
Again,
Gin,
yeah,
yeah,
Gin double rest is crazy against Law.
and then the Craig factor, right? So
Yeah,
Krieg, you
exactly.
get the
So yeah, East Blue cards kind of suck, but The fact is they're good against the top two decks, and I think that's what actually boosts Kuro up this high.
Yeah.
Next up, let's have Magellan.
Magellan.
Magellan is a very polarizing deck. I think it actually has some nasty matchups against
Yeah,
some of the best decks.
yeah, definitely wins against yellow pretty consistently. Wins
Yeah.
against Whitebeard, probably its best matchup. And with Whitebeard being so rampant, it's like, yeah, why not play Magellan? It does
Mm-hmm.
struggle with some of the other matchups. But you could pull through. You could pull through and definitely get some nice top 64s, top 32s with the deck like that.
Yeah, definitely the best purple deck. Just denying decks their curve, like 8 cost Katakuri or 10 cost Mom, is going to be hugely detrimental to a lot of decks.
Hmm.
Next up, we have Smoker. Smoker kinda just worse Lucci, in my opinion. You'll get his effect off more commonly. However, it's not gonna help you like close out games, which Lucci is gonna do very frequently.
Yeah, and I think early game having to attach one Dawn to get an extra 1,000 if they have a one cost on board is like sometimes you want to play your curve instead of attaching to your leader, and so Lucci's just does it better, right? You can play your curve out and then not have to worry about attaching any Dawn until later on. So it's like sometimes you have to do a trade off where it's like, okay, do I play my 4 drop on curve or do I attach one onto my leader and swing? So it's like,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't know.
Just black as a color is pretty in a pretty decent spot right now, but I just think you always want to play on curve, and his leader effect is gonna keep you from doing that unless you go second, which is gonna be pretty awkward.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up we will have Nami. Nami, I was considering putting in good just because if you high roll, it's probably unbeatable.
Yeah. The one deck
But
is probably unbeatable. Maybe Law up there with high rolling, but yeah,
yeah,
Nami, you can just high roll and you don't have to play the game.
yeah. If you see the cards you need to see to deck out and you get the triggers, I don't think there's any stopping this deck. People will know how to play against it now, unlike they did at the start. Swing for either lows to make them over counter or swing for nines. But still, even then, Nami players, like again, if they see it, they see it, and that's what this deck comes down to.
Yeah.
They can beat any deck in the format. Next up, we will be going to good tier. These decks are all meta contenders. You'll be seeing them in top placings very frequently. And
Start with
first
Luffy.
up, we'll have Luffy.
Luffy, Monkey D. Luffy. Yeah, I'll definitely have an opinion here. So basically, it's definitely the second worst red deck, mono red deck, behind Ace. Ace is probably the worst mono red deck. I think that
Uta's the deck, but we don't talk about
uh,
that one.
yeah, the nope tier we don't talk about that. So Luffy definitely gets carried by the red cards. There's no doubt about it. The consistency that red brings allows it to place top if you play well. And I think the 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 leader effect, it's decent. It's okay. You attach one rested onto your leader or a character. It's decent, but it's nothing special. It's nothing game breaking. And so this is a deck where decent leader ability, but great cards in red, which allow it to be in this tier.
Exactly. It's basically carried by red. You put this leader ability in any other color, and I'd say this deck might be in nope tier, but since it's
Yeah,
red,
100%.
it's up there.
Yeah.
So next up, we're gonna have yellow Big Mom starter deck. I played a lot of this deck, and I think this deck is very good. I might even put it over Katakuri in some scenarios, but realistically, Katakuri is just going to be way more consistent. There's not a lot of times that people give you sometimes to actually use the leader effect. Like if you get down to 3 Dawn, but you're on 8 Dawn turn and you want to play Akos Katakuri, you're just not going to get to use it. Next turn, you're on 10. You're going to want to play 10 Mom, so you're never actually going to get use out of that leader effect in these scenarios. But you will, in every game, usually get it once or twice if you have the right cards in hand and
Yeah.
in the right scenarios. But again, yellow, you play 10 cost Big Mom. This card is going to be strong just for that fact alone.
Yeah, I
And
agree. 100%. Yeah.
yeah, choosing what triggers you get is very strong and underrated as well. Allows you to play cards you couldn't play in Katakuri. Anyways, next up we will have Rob Lucci. A lot of people thought this was going to be way up on the tier list, almost breaking top three after we got out of the Japan meta. But I truly think that is because everybody in Japan played Whitebeard. Don't get me wrong, a lot
Yeah.
of people here play Whitebeard, but with the restrictions and stuff like this, a lot of more people are on Zoro and Law and stuff like that, and Lucci doesn't necessarily love those matchups. He's definitely the Whitebeard killer. I don't think he destroys Whitebeard, but that's definitely his best matchup, and I honestly think that's why he was overshowing in the Eastern meta. But he's still a great deck. I play him. He's my main deck. He got a lot of great tools, but at the end of the day, I think the meta is too fast for him.
Yeah, I think the fact that the restrictions made all the whitebeards turn into strawbeards also hurt Lucci because I think Lucci does
Yeah.
really well against your cookie cutter nine beard,
Mm-hmm.
a four drop Marco, five drop Marco. He does really well against that version, but I think it's slightly worse versus strawbeard, which is what we only see now. We don't ever see your conventional whitebeard anymore after the restriction. So I think that also played a factor on it not being in best tier.
Agree. Definitely agree. But still a great deck at the end of the day.
Yeah, still a
If
contender.
you see the cards, it's a great deck. Next up, we got Kid. Starter deck Kid is he's always going to be good. The leader ability is disgusting,
Hmm.
and 8-drop Kid is great. You probably know more about this leader than me, so
Yeah, for sure. You have your late game covered at all times with your leader ability. You trash one card, rest three Dawn, and you can restand your leader. So you can, do some crazy big swings, 9, 9, 10, 10, up to, I think, 12, 12 is your biggest you can attack with him. And then so we have two kinds of decks with Kid. We have the Film Kid, which is really good and tempo based. If you see your cards, it's better than the conventional Supernova Kid. But the Supernova Kid, I would say might be a little more consistent because all you need to do is see one ACOS kid, and then you start working your blockers, you work your Punk Gibsons, you start getting value out of your ACOS kid, where it's like you basically have an ACOS or AK leader because they had to kill it first. And so in certain matchups, that card will just win you the match for free. And others, it is a little more hard and complicated, like versus Zoro. But yeah, I think both of the decks that we are currently seeing, the Supernova and the Film Kid, are probably both deserve to be in good tier.
sure, completely agree. Next up, we've got our top five. Big surprise here, making it into our top five barely. We've got Blue Doflamingo with its recent top one at what was that Gen Con
Gencon.
regionals in
Yep,
person?
offline.
Yep,
Hmm.
offline regionals. Crazy
Insane.
placing. I think he ran into like mostly Whitebeard, which is a good matchup for Doflamingo from what I understand.
Yeah,
Which
I think on his run to win it, he played I think five Whitebeards back to back. So
so definitely a pretty lucky run for Doflamingo. I mean, if you see the right decks, he actually has really good matchups into a lot of different decks.
yeah,
And actually into the top decks, even into Law now. Law he struggled with Law, I think, last set, but now with cards like 3,000 Worlds to get rid of any 5 cost Law wants to play, I think he's actually in a pretty good spot against all three of the top decks.
yeah, and then his leader effect just lets him get big swings off while also getting a 5K body on board, a 6K body on board. Uh, and it's just I think that's where the value comes from in this deck, and I think that's what gives it the edge and putting it into our top five. I think that leader effect is just
Yeah,
it's very good.
exactly. It's value out of your deck and not out of your hand like Arlong, so you're actually not using any resources that you have. You're gaining it from your deck. And it also allows your opponent to not swing into leader a lot of the time. You'll be late in the game and Doflamingo will still have 5 life. I think that's actually exactly what happened in the regionals.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
because they keep having to swing at your ever increasing board. Anyway, next up we've got our best yellow deck, Katakuri. A lot of people on Katakuri. This is a great deck. Its leader effect is just no
Broken.
brainer,
Yeah,
busted. Just
yeah.
1,000 power for nothing, plus an effect. Very, very good. Very consistent. It's a 5 life leader, and this deck can compete with any deck as long as it gets at least 2 triggers. If this deck gets 3 or 4 triggers, that's when you're kind of looking at an unwinnable match.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like people like to say it's called casino curry, right? Because you're just gambling. If you hit the triggers, you're gonna have a great time. If you don't, your matchup spread gets a little worse. But obviously a deck you can 10 bomb in, which is
Exactly.
an
Broken card.
insane, yeah, an insane card to get so much value. And yeah, I think a deck like this can definitely. I'm not sure if it's topped yet, but it's definitely gone top eight. It's
Yeah,
uh
it's
plenty
always
of top
there.
eight, plenty of top 16s. But yeah, it's just this is just one of those decks where you have to consistently uh win, but your deck is a casino, right? So it's like the odds of that happening are slim. So
Yeah.
we'll continue to see this deck top and definitely deserving of that fourth spot.
Yeah, there's always going to be one that makes it up there. Just hasn't been one to actually roll all the way to number one.
Yeah.
Next up, at our number three position, we'll have Law. Out of our top three decks, I'd say Law is definitely the hardest to pilot and the least played out of the top three. Probably because of that reason. But I think it might have some of the highest ceilings in the game as far as best decks go. If
Yeah,
you
I agree. Yeah.
if
Good.
you see yeah, if you see your cards, this deck is sometimes just completely unbeatable, and you know what you're doing. But in other scenarios, which is why it's probably number three, you can draw really dead with this deck, and people can kind of just crush you and roll you over before you can actually get too much value out of your leader effect.
Yeah, 100%. I think this leader effect is probably the uh best in the game. Uh, I would argue that it is the best leader effect in the game. Being able to pay two to swap out and play a five drop is pretty insane. Obviously, you have requirements. You have to have a full board. But I think this deck is probably the deck you can roll the highest on. This is a really high roll deck. If you're consistently seeing your cards, you will not lose a single match. Definitely struggles against the new Zoro decks post restriction because of all the Fire Fist. So I think that's why we saw a good amount of law players swap to Zoro because I know a bunch of law players, um, really competitive law players switch over to that Zoro. Just because if you get Fire Fisted two, three times, you're looking at a rough matchup. And since there's so many Zoros, it's kind of it's kind of hard to beat them, so you just join them. But yeah, I think this deck is in number three, and it's deserving of that three.
Completely agree. Speaking of Zoro, Zoro's going to be up next at number two, making our number one deck Whitebeard. But speaking of Zoro, this deck has infinite value with infinite searchers that draw you and then can attack. They have infinite removal on board with cards like Marco and Fire Fist. They have some of the best defense in the game with Rad Beam, Guard Point, you name it. Red and Zoro makes use of everything Red is great at, and it is just amazingly hard for a lot of these decks to deal with.
Yep, it's definitely a very hard matchup for most decks, and I would think that I would personally believe that what makes this deck, uh, you know, be so high and so good right now is obviously the red support is amazing. The searchers make it the most consistent deck in our meta currently, and the ability to adapt to any matchup. There's so many variations of Zoros that adapt to certain decks over others, and so we see so many different, uh, you know, cards being played currently with some running Flamenco, some running Brooks, some running Diable Jams, some running Vistas. Like there's so many interchangeable options that allow you to choose what kind of matchup spread you want. And so I think other decks don't have this luxury in this current meta. So I definitely have Zoro at two, arguably number one for me. But yeah, the red is just too powerful right now.
Exactly, yeah. Red has so many good cards, so many different tech cards you can slot in for different matchups, and other decks just don't have that, whether they don't have enough cards in the pool yet, or they just straight up don't have enough good cards yet. Like there's not enough good blue cards for this to even be a conversation. And yellow is a brand new color. There's just not enough cards in general. Like you're basically playing the cookie cutter Big Mom Pirates in every
Yeah.
single yellow deck.
Hmm.
Until these other colors get these good and frequent cards that are good and you can slot in different tech cards, I don't think any deck is going to be anywhere near as good as red.
Yeah.
Speaking of another last red deck, we have Whitebeard. They tried to strike it down twice now with Moby Dick and the recent restrictions, but this old man is pretty unkillable.
Yes, yeah, proven to be a lot more efficient than they expected after the restrictions. Personally, all I have to say is that 6K power, being the only 6K power in our meta, makes it a hard deck to deal with. And then on top of that, it has 6 life. So already +1, maybe +2 on some of the forward life leaders, +2 net over of cards they're gonna have in hand at the end of the game. And so I think that just that combo together makes this deck probably the best deck because of that. You know, you get so much value while you're drawing your life. It makes it hard to not be consistent because you have your red searchers, right? Obviously, you don't run the same ones as Zoro, but you run enough to see the cards that you're gonna need. What are your thoughts? Yeah, definitely for me the best deck in the current
Yeah.
set.
Um, you'll notice a trend among this tier list. The highest placing dual color leader is Law. Any other next one is going to be Big Mom down here in trolling tier. I just think 4 life is way too big of a detriment. You're drawing one less card because you only have 4 life, and it just gives you with less life and less flexibility. You have less options. Whitebeard not only has 6K power, he has 6 life. I don't know if this guy needed 6 life. He could have been fine with 5.
Yeah,
But 6 life, yeah, as you said, means extra card draw in the best color in the game. It doesn't matter that you take them. You're taking them to hand. It's just a recipe for disaster. And I really don't know how they're going to knock this leader down. Because you can take as many red cards as you want away from it. It's still going to be probably the best red deck. Because you're taking it from all of red. It's still going to be the best. I think the only real way to get rid of this guy is truly to ban the leader or make a weird errata that's like he starts at 5 life.
yeah,
I don't know what to do at this
yeah,
point in time.
yeah. Definitely. I don't. I mean, we're so late into this current OP 3.5. You know, we're less than a month away from our next pre-release, and so I feel like as long as they keep the restrictions up and we see these new cards coming in for OP04, I think we'll be able to, you know, maintain and have a tame Whitebeard matchup spread for the other decks with the new support that all the other decks are getting. But I do fear that if they remove the restrictions, that Whitebeard is going to be, you know, in the top 2 again. And I would prefer that we don't.
Yeah, a lot of Whitebeard in the East, as you've seen. It's not going away. We'll see if the restrictions stay next set. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that has been our tier list for the latter end of the OP03 meta. I hope you enjoyed. This has been Jim and Wraith Talks with Awaken TCG. Subscribe for more daily videos. We will have more coming out your way. Thank you.